and I'm going to record. If anyone missed it, they can show up. So welcome. You're here because you want to learn more about LinkedIn, particularly for engineering careers. And so I'm excited to talk about that with you tonight. We're going to go over a lot of different things, but our time is limited. There's only so much we can cover, and we can talk about how we can do some more after this. But I'm going to introduce something to you. I do sometimes on these group meetings, and I call it quick chat. The whole point here, and this is to keep the engagement going so you can kind of interact every once in a while, so I'm not just a talking head the entire time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to type your answer in the chat box. Make sure you're sharing to everyone, okay? But don't press enter until I do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. And then we get to watch all the responses come in all at the same time. So it's kind of fun where we get to have that engagement instead of hoping that I just get one person answer a question. We can all do this all at the same time. We're all engaging at the same time, okay? So we're gonna do a quick run through. First question is, where are you joining us from? I want you to type that into the chat, get it all ready. And then I'm gonna do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. Go ahead and press enter. Minnesota, Oregon, Seattle, Louisville, San Diego, New York. Awesome. We got people all over the country. California, Clemson. Anyone international? I don't see it. Guatemala. Very good. So we do have international. Very, very good. Awesome. Glad to have you all. Glad to have you all here. So we'll do that a few times throughout presentation today. So as we get started, my promise here to you is I want to give you some specific strategies that you can use on LinkedIn today. If you want to go get into LinkedIn and start doing some stuff, I want you to be able to do that immediately, okay? And this can help you if you're job searching, if you're trying to improve your network or trying to just build your personal brand and even more beyond that. And then if you stick around to the end, I've got some free stuff to continue to learn, including my ultimate LinkedIn profile guide, if you don't already have that, okay? So if you're here and you're wondering like, hey, is this for you? Like, is this going to be worth your time? Well, if you're an engineer or a technical professional who's trying to figure out how to utilize LinkedIn better to land a new opportunity, or if you are trying to figure out how to just grow your network online, or if you're trying to build an online personal brand without wasting a bunch of time on every social media platform on the planet, well, then you're in the right place. We're going to be talking about stuff that's relevant to you, okay? So my invitation to you, though, is to be present, to really engage with the group, put the cell phone away, turn off all your other tabs, unless you're using your cell phone to tune in, obviously, and then just see what you learn, see what you discover. And, if you're already given this time, may as well make the most out of it, right? So let's see what we can do. Quick introduction for me, for anyone who doesn't know me. I'm Jeff Perry. I founded a company called More Than Engineering. I have a mechanical engineering, software, and manufacturing engineering background. Actually got my degree in mechanical engineering. I did an MBA a couple years ago. I host a podcast called the Engineering Career Coach Podcast, and I would call myself a leadership and career coach. And I really enjoy what I do, but it hasn't all been rosy along the way. I've kind of been at the bottom. I know what it feels like to feel stuck in a job that I really hated. I felt stuck at. I felt undervalued or underpaid, unengaged. I was so bored, wanted to pull my hair out. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's my young children and why I feel like I might be balding. I'm not sure. I've also had that experience of like economic uncertainty, like living on unemployment, trying to take care of my family and not sure if it would run out before I'd be able to turn things around or find something I wanted to. Also kind of been at the top, had that cushy job that paid pretty well, had benefits, and could just kind of do my thing, and had leadership opportunities and whatnot. But also got to the point where eventually I knew I wasn't actually continuing to grow and develop as a person, as a professional, and still knew I needed to change. So there are a lot of different reasons we may be exploring changes or career growth or other things. And a couple of years ago, it's been almost exactly 2 years that I created More Than Engineering. with the goal to help engineers and technical professionals create careers that they love without sacrificing the lifestyle that they desire. I want to help people jumpstart, upgrade their careers. And the word I use a lot is with intention. I want people to be intentional about doing this so they can do this in the right way. And so I want to help you and teach you some of the things I've learned in this training. And one of the tools we often use is LinkedIn. So that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. There's a lot of different pieces to making an intentional career transition. And this is one of them and one of the tools we use. So I want to do another one of these quick chats to really figure out, why are you really here? So again, a reminder, don't type it please type it in the chat box, but don't press enter until I do a 3, 2, 1 countdown. So the question is, what is your biggest question about LinkedIn? The biggest question in particular that you want to have answered tonight. So think about that for a second. Type that into the chat. Give you a few more seconds here. Type something in. And then I'll give you a 3, 2, 1, press enter and share with everyone. How to refine the search, how to fix my LinkedIn profile. Do I need to post on LinkedIn often? Is it fun or something useful? How do I make better connections with recruiters, get more reach? What are really catching employers' attentions? How do I deal with the summary section, best represent? Oh, there's so much good stuff here. And a lot of these things we are going to be talking about. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to go deep into every single one of these. Also going to have some time for Q&A, and we can ask and answer specific questions at the end as well. So a lot of things. So why are we even talking about LinkedIn? Okay. Well, LinkedIn's huge and particularly oriented towards the career and professional network. And some of this data is pretty old. It's hard to get the latest data on LinkedIn. This is the best I was able to do. So this is a few years ago, at least, that I got, over 600 million subscribers, 300 million, about half are active monthly users. 40% of those are daily. We're talking about a ton of senior level influencers or decision makers. Almost all Fortune 500 companies are there. But this is what's really interesting. Someone was asking about, should I be posting or things? Only about 3 million. So that's about 1% of the active users, only about 0.5% of the total subscribers or members share content on a weekly basis. So if you share content, you're actually in the top 1% of users as far as how active you are on the platform. And I imagine this number here, because this was 5+ years ago, 130,000 posts monthly it's way more than that. And it's really angled, really educated people. Half or more of all US adults with college degrees use LinkedIn. So there's a very educated community as far as social media goes. So, and I believe that LinkedIn, as far as a base building of your personal professional brand, is one of the best places to do that. So we're going to talk about a number of different angles to this. And what we're going to start on is connection strategies, like connecting with the right people. How do we do this? And I want to share some of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit ways to do it. Okay. So I want to start with, well, and we're doing that because the more connections you have, the better on LinkedIn, because it's the network effects of the more people you're connected to really make it useful. Okay. So one of the easiest ways to do this is to just click on the My Network button. I'm just doing a few screenshots on, from the desktop version, click on My Network. And then what you can do is you can actually import the contacts you have from any email addresses you have. And you can do this from multiple email addresses if necessary. So this person, Josh, put in his email here. You're going to add your personal contacts. And then what it's going to do is going to bring in all the people that you've emailed for one reason or another, compare that against the LinkedIn database and say, hey, would you like to connect with them? Would you like to connect with them? This is a really quick bulk way of adding and asking people if they want to connect if you're already connected with them in some way, you've already corresponded with them, maybe you work with them, maybe they're friends, family, you know them in the community, whoever that is, it's just a really easy way to bring those people in, who you've already interacted with in some way. Probably the lowest hanging fruit to add 50, 100, sometimes 200 or 300 or more people to your LinkedIn connections work, instead of you having to think through personally, the technology can do the work for you. Okay, that's the lowest hanging fruit to add people to your network. And then one of the great things about that, sometimes these are people that you haven't talked to in a while, and this is an opportunity to strike up another conversation. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for connecting here. Let's catch up. You never know where those conversations, even if you haven't talked to them in a few years, maybe since school, whatever, never know where those conversations can lead, because things have changed, and those old relationships can still be quite valuable, right? Another thing you can do is just kind of ask yourself, like, who do you know? You click on the network button, and LinkedIn's going to try and give you some suggestions. People you may know, like I went to BYU, Brigham Young University, for my undergrad engineering degree. And so it's suggesting people I may know from there. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of the people on here, my now wife dated while she was in school. And so that was a little bit weird when I took this picture. I didn't realize it till I'd actually used this photo in a presentation. So that was kind of interesting. But, but I've had multiple times where I click on this button. I'm like, hey, I remember that person. Let me connect with them. LinkedIn's trying to get you to connect with people you might know, from various things. It's going to suggest alumni. It's going to suggest people you may have worked with at a particular company, people who might be in the same region or other things. It's going to give you different stuff. And so if you do know them, connect with them. It's great. Just an easy way to do that. Now, we may or may not be getting to more in-person networking opportunities, but sometimes we think about like going to networking events, handing out business cards. Hopefully someone will call us back. But this is a feature on the LinkedIn app that a lot of people don't know about, but you can use this to quickly connect with someone on LinkedIn. So if you see, when you open up the LinkedIn app, there's a search bar. On the right side of the search bar, you have this opportunity to either scan or show a QR code. And so you can quickly do that. Someone can scan that, or you can scan theirs, and you can quickly connect with them on LinkedIn. I've done this multiple times, and people are like, hey, that's a cool thing I didn't know before. It's kind of like a networking party trick, if you will. And then you're very quickly connected there on LinkedIn, okay? But you took that in person, took it onto a digital place, and quickly get to know, connect with them and keep that conversation alive, rather than hoping that the email gets sent, if you hand out a business card or something. So it's just another way to do that. Okay, and that's a great thing to do. Like, hey, if someone I think was a student, do that at a career fair or other meetups or other things, can be really helpful. Okay, a few other suggestions to quickly create connections. LinkedIn separates connections between first, second degree, and third degree connections. Okay, so first degree, people you're directly connected with. Second degree, if you're not already familiar, people who you have a mutual first degree connection. So I'm connected with Matt, and maybe someone else is connected with Matt. So they would be my second degree connection, because we have a mutual connection through Matt, just as I'm seeing. And so they would be a second degree connection. If we don't have any mutual first degree connections, then they're a third degree. So, but that second degree connection group can be a great question there. Like, you can actually search and say, who are you seeing out there who's a second degree connection? See who they're connected with. See if you can get an introduction. Is that someone who you'd like to know? If you see them sharing content on LinkedIn, you want to connect with them, could you get an introduction from the mutual connection somehow, right? You can also ask LinkedIn does a little work and tells you who's viewing your profile. It'll be a little bit limited if you have just the free version. If you're one of their paid versions, you'll see almost everyone. but it still will show you like, hey, how many views are you getting? Who are some of these people? Hey, Steven checked out my profile. Maybe I should connect with him. I don't know. And you can just send him a message, say, hey, thanks for checking out my profile. I'd love to learn more about you. That's another way to do it too. Or if you are sharing content, sharing ideas on the platform, people who like or comment, engage with you there, those are great people to connect with as well. Say, hey, thank you so much for liking or commenting, or, I really loved what you said in this comment. Thanks so much. Would love to connect, learn more about you. I mean, these are very easy ways, natural ways that people would want to engage. So hopefully I shared a bunch of high level stuff. I want to make this easy for you to think about how can I quickly grow my network. That's where I'm focused on for this first section. Okay. But as we transition here, I want to do another one of these quick chats. And so the question here, type in the answer, but don't press enter until I do a countdown. How would you define what a personal brand is? When you think about personal branding, what's your definition of that? So I'm kind of curious. Give it just a few more seconds. Type in your answer, and we will do press enter in 3, 2, 1. Press enter. Your reputation, what I know. Matt says he has no idea. Digital representation of a person's experience, goals, and reputation. I kind of like that, Ben. What summarizes you, says Elizabeth. How you sell yourself as a person. Yeah. What makes you stand out, says Shashank. A lot of different ways that we can talk about this. One way that I will define here tonight, I think of it, if you think of it like a Venn diagram, one circle is all the things that that are true about you, okay, all the things about you, and then another one is what people what is shared about you, and that intersection, what is shared about you somewhere online or where people can find out more information, that intersection, what's true and what is shared, that intersection is what people actually see and are actually able to perceive. And so you want that intersection to be greater, so that people can get a more full view of you and who you are. Right? It's that connection between what's true and what people can actually know about you. And so professionally, again, I think LinkedIn is a fabulous place to be doing this. So what we're going to transition to now, we're talking about a number of different strategies and ideas you might consider using in terms of LinkedIn profile optimization. Okay, I want to give you some examples and some tips to really make sure that you can do that. And again, if you stick around to the end, I've got a whole guide on going through deeply. We're only going to be able to cover a few things. So just a few examples. This is Chris. This is one of my friends and former clients. And one of the things he does here really well is, it looks really professional. He looked good. He went and had some good photos taken. He's got a nice background photo here showing like collaboration. That's something he's important to. And he's got some great headlines. One of the things about the very top of your LinkedIn profile, the idea here is that you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So your title, your pictures, your banner or background photo, these are where you're showing your first impressions. Okay, so I want you smiling. I want you looking pretty professional. You don't have to necessarily be wearing a suit or, terribly formal or anything like that, but you need to be looking professional and smiling, and people need to be able to see your face, not like a really dark background or anything like that. And when it comes to the banner, what's behind. I'd love that to be something relevant, unique to you. You can share about your company or something. I'll show you a few more examples here in a second. And then your title, or your what's called your headline, that's where he's saying mechanical engineering manager, manufacturing, and all those things. You want to make it unmistakable what you do and who you do it for. And I think Chris does a great job here. And it's also a great place for keywords. You're kind of playing a keyword game here on LinkedIn. If you want people to be finding you or other things, recruiters reaching out or for them to be searching, maybe find you, the more relevant keywords and things that you can share up there is critical. So let me share a few examples in particular. Tim's another friend of mine, and he takes a different approach. Like he talks, empowering people, accelerating innovation. These are things that are important to him, but he also shares these different things that he does. He does aerospace stuff. He's an engineer, and he's also got some certifications and degrees and things. So he shares that, right? And super cool. She's a PhD, but she also does mountain biking. She does professional mountain biking. So that's what she made here, her background photo. That's unique to her, right? And so she shares the different things here, project management, research, different types of chemistry, biosensors, but also that she's a professional athlete. So these are different things here. And then Tom, I actually put in here because this is kind of what I don't want you to do. Okay, Tom's a good guy, but by default, you notice both of these people and Chris that we saw earlier have custom headlines here. What LinkedIn does by default is it just shares your current role in your current company. And that's all it's doing here for Tom. He also, excuse me, is using, doesn't have a particular background photo. It's just the generic LinkedIn background. And so that's not actually helpful. He's missing out on this opportunity to share something, visually more appealing about him, who he is and what he does, right?
Jeff,
okay, so Matt's asked,
Jeff, go ahead. A question from Matt in the chat.
Yeah, I just go on there. Thanks, James. So Matt's asking, do keywords in the title carry more weight than in your job history? And the word's yes. My understanding, LinkedIn doesn't, open up the hood on all of their algorithm stuff. But my understanding is that about 40% or so of the keyword weight exists in your title or headline there. So the most important headlines or keywords you definitely want to be putting in the title for types of job roles or keywords in industries or things that you work on, technologies that in your headline for sure. So yes, absolutely. Any other questions about this? Is that helpful, Matt? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Good deal. So as you kind of scroll down, next beyond that top section with the title and your photos and stuff like that, we get to the about section. Okay, the about section is kind of interesting. Our friends back in the newspaper business, before people stopped actually reading paper newspapers, they're really big on what was called above the fold. And we still do that in websites today. Like if you look at a website, like what's the first thing you see on your screen before you have to start scrolling down? That's above the fold. Well, some of the sections on LinkedIn kind of force that as well. And the about section is one of those. So the first 2 or 3 lines are critical because for someone to read the whole rest of it, they need to click a button that says see more. So those first few lines are critical to get people interested to want to read on. Okay, so I like making it personal, write it in first person, and really this is kind of a digital elevator pitch. I like this quote: think of your LinkedIn bio as your personal elevator pitch. if you connect with someone in your LinkedIn profile and they visit your page, what do you want them to know within the first 10 seconds? Who are you? Who do you help? How do you add value to the world? So your first thing that they'll be looking at is that title. And then the next thing they'll be looking at is really trying to be like, okay, who is this person? I'm going to go to the bio, and I'm going to do that before I go to the experience section and what you do. And this is another place where keywords can be really powerful, at least equally as powerful as the experience section that we'll get to as well. And so you can include like list of skills or other things again here, technologies that you know, or other things, so that those skills are showing up and heavy on your profile for things that you want to be known for. Okay. So here's just a few examples. I want to share a few examples, at least of the first few lines. Okay. Because you can be kind of more pragmatic, like being straightforward, like this person, experienced manager and engineer focused on X, Y, and Z, and these are the different things they worked on. These are important keywords, improve quality, customer adoption, reduce costs, other things. But he's being pretty straightforward about who he is and what he does, not really hiding anything and making that succinct. And then, hey, if that's someone I'm interested in more, I'm going to click that see more button down there and learn more. This is another one, is an example that is a little more interesting. So it's that person who Anne, who I said was a professional bike athlete, but also a PhD scientist. And she's telling straight up, she's like, I'm not your typical PhD scientist. During the work week, I manage projects as a chemist. And on weekends, I race mountain bikes professionally and serve as an ambassador. And like, oh, that's interesting. But from that very first sentence, I'm like, okay, this is an interesting person that I want to get to know a little bit more. So she made that really compelling. It just really kind of leaves you hanging here. This is another way, kind of leaving you hanging, kind of really piquing your interest in a story. Like, my dad bought a computer for our home when I was in 5th grade. Whenever I wanted to use it, aka constantly, he asked why. And that's one way to kind of leave a hook, be like, okay, now I'm kind of interested. Where are you going with this? It's a creative way to do it. It may not be a fit for you, but it's an option here. And here's another one, just to give you one more example. Some people like to start with quotes that are meaningful to them. No special talent, I'm only passionately curious, from Einstein. And then she tells a story here. I can still recall the memory of an incident that makes me so fascinated about civil engineering. And so now I kind of want to know the story and I want to click see more. So these are just a few examples of how to write those first few sentences. Obviously, finish the story, share some other things, maybe career highlights and other things that you've done there in your about section, some of the skills that you have, technologies that you know, and other things that are important to you, like we talked about before. But those first few lines are the most critical. You want people to want to read more, okay? Now, as we move on to other parts of the profile, like the work experience, another critical factor here. And what you want is your work experience section combined with your about section to really tell a story of your career growth and trajectory. But also each job, like you can kind of tell a story within that. Like, tell me, when you came to this company, like, what were you hired to do? Have you faced some challenges? Have you overcome them? And you can kind of write a paragraph or two if you want. This is different than what you might share on a resume, at least some of the things. Like, you can still create, as I say at the bottom here, some of those typical bullet points of those measurable impacts and results that you would normally put on a resume. But LinkedIn allows you to be a little bit more expressive. And so you can do this in a number of ways. So let me show you about kind of a storytelling approach that I think is a good example. So this is someone who works in technology at Wells Fargo. And most of us would know who Wells Fargo is one of the largest banks out there, but we may not know what Digital Labs is. And that's where, the group inside. So he kind of describes that. At Digital Labs, we're dedicated to X, Y, and Z. This is what we do. And inside of there, I lead key strategy and early stage product development efforts on this and this. My role also includes X, Y, and Z. And so he's telling you the story about who Digital Labs is, what his role is, and what we're working on trying to accomplish. And then, there's more there. Okay, so this person didn't include any of the bullet points, just went full story, which you may or may not want to do. Okay, I do typically recommend having some bullet points with those measurable results. So I'm going to show you Anne's one of her more recent jobs. And she does a little bit of summary, like, hey, I do technical support in toxicology and risk assessment and other things. But she was pretty heavy in terms of, these are measurable results I did. I delivered results, projects under budget, exceeded billing goals, because they're consultants, so they need to get to a certain number of billable hours. She did large projects where she had to do samples and run tests on thousands of things. She speaks at professional conferences and did multiple invited talks and outreach efforts and other things for the company. You can also share some more multimedia things. So there were some of these examples of articles and things that were written about her and the work that she and the company does, that she shared down here. And so you can link to those and connect and kind of share a fuller story of like what you've done while you're there. This article talked about, hey, she's a geek. She does all the science and technology stuff, but then talked about some of the cool stuff she does on the weekends when she goes mountain biking professionally. So telling her story, and so that's a cool way to add to that personal brand, right? Like I'm telling you this story, the things I do professionally, but it goes beyond that a little bit more. These are some of my other passions, right? But you also want to be, it's another place that's important for keywords, as we've been talking about in different things. Okay, so those are just a couple examples there. Moving on to other sections of the profile. One of the strongest things you can have are some recommendations. So I just took some from my own profile, some of the people that I've worked with and helped in various capacities. But I mean, how powerful is that if a recruiter's coming to your LinkedIn profile and being like, hey, I see Matt or James or Elizabeth or Wayne or whoever, any of you, and they have multiple people who are saying like, yeah, they were great to work with in these areas. Like, how strong is that when people are, sharing that, just how great you are to work with and how important that was. It's extremely powerful. And so I would suggest getting a minimum of 3. If you can get more than that, that's great. But also make sure that you can also give these recommendations or these testimonials. It's a great way to pay it back. If there's someone that you really appreciate working with, a mentor or a peer, or someone that you managed, whoever they are in their career, but what great gift can you give them, and giving them a great referral on there as well, and help them out. So it's not, and it also probably looks good too, if you've given some referrals, not just asked for all of these, because you're someone who pays it forward as well. So you can request them from certain people, and it'll send them a LinkedIn message saying, hey, I'd love a referral. You can kind of send a message to them, expressing how grateful you've been to work with them, and different things like that. And then they can share that. And then the good thing is, you get to approve when they write one for you. And so if for some reason they were to say something that you didn't want to be shared, then you can say, hey, can you adjust this, please, just for one reason or another, and do that. So a great way to boost that profile as well. And just a new pro tip, I just learned this about this last week. So so LinkedIn is always adding new features and stuff. One of the things they started doing, if you see, especially on the app, they started doing stories, kind of like Instagram stories. You may or may not like that feature, but one thing that I do think is really cool is they have a feature called the cover story. So you may notice, I just added this last week on my own profile, it has kind of this orange ring. So that's going to stand out a little bit more versus other profiles. Okay. And what it does, if people click on that photo, they get a 30-second video of me that I recorded. I just kind of introducing myself like, hey, this is who I am and what I do. Okay. But it's me talking to them rather than just reading it. And one of the things they did, even on the job search, they did it, LinkedIn did a survey, says, 76% of hiring managers believe that seeing a pre-recorded video of a job seeker would be useful. Okay, so why not introduce yourself, talk about who you are and what you do. 30 seconds, doesn't take that long. You can try it multiple times so you feel comfortable with it. And, it's another way to engage. And also, it's a new feature, and LinkedIn likes to boost people who use their new features. They're always trying to mess with their algorithms. And so you might find that if you do that, you might get a little boost from LinkedIn because you're trying out some of their new features. It's only in the last few months that they've been doing this. Okay, that's just another thing you might consider there. But there's so many different sections inside of a full LinkedIn profile. The lesson I want to convey to you is your LinkedIn profile can be full of great things that show who you are, the depth and breadth of your experiences, your expertise, the skills you bring to the table. So fill it up. Like there's a featured section which you can share other links to projects you've worked on or things that's towards the top. Share more about why you did the education you did, some of the volunteer stuff that you do, any licenses, certifications that may be critical in certain technology arenas that you're in, other accomplishments. The skills section is critical because people can search by that, making sure you've got the right keywords in there in the skills section that people can endorse you for or just find you for. There's a lot of stuff here, and I wish we could go in more detail. But I just want to say, don't leave any stone unturned, right? Spend the time here. Hopefully I shared some of the lowest hanging fruit where you can focus first, but fill out the whole profile, take the time to do it. You'll be glad you did. Okay. So another quick chat here. We go into another section. My question here is, what do you think is the average number of applications that are submitted for a corporate job posting? Because I know a lot of you are here because you're trying to do a career switch or you're on the job hunt in one way or another. So, you think if you submit an application or put in a resume, what's the average number of applications of number of people that you're likely fighting against? So put in the number you think, and then 3, 2, 1, press enter. Elizabeth says 225. I see 30, 80, 100 to 500, 50, 150, 200 to 500. Okay, so we kind of have numbers all over the place. And obviously this is going to change based on industry and the specific role in the specific company. But on average, corporate job postings attract about 250 resumes. Okay, on average. Obviously it goes up and down. And so if you think about an average of 5 people will get an interview and only 1 gets a job, right? Think about those numbers. If you are just applying to a role and hoping you're going to get it, that's about a 2% chance, if everything's equal, that you're going to get an interview, and a 0.4% chance of getting a job. So I talk to people all the time. They're like, I've applied to 30 jobs and I haven't gotten any interviews. Well, that's actually not terribly surprising based on this data, right? On average, you need to apply for 50 jobs to maybe get 1 interview, but that's if everything's equal, and it's not. So we need to do things that stand out. You need to be above average and way above average in order for you to be that one person in some way that stands out and they want to hire. Okay, so it really does come down to some of the profile stuff and things we talked about can help you stand out, but in the end, it still comes down to who you know. And that's why LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for the networking side of things. LinkedIn makes it really easy to know more people and get to know more people, connect with more people in various ways. And because the truth is it's not online job postings or applications or other things that really get you hired. In the end, it's people. You need to connect with people, and it's people that are going to make those hiring decisions that say, yes, I want to hire you. And so you need to be able to connect with people. So my advice, and it's a great book that I would recommend. It was written particularly for MBAs, graduating MBAs, but I think all of us could learn from the strategies here, called the 2-Hour Job Search, is not to start with job postings, but first target a list of preferred companies that you really want to work for, that you're excited about. People who are in your industry, in your area, if region is important to you, meet the criteria of company size or what they're working on, or different things. Get a list of 30 or 40 companies and then prioritize them. Who would you want to put at the top? Then start finding out who is in those companies that you want to connect with. But don't search for these companies that just have open jobs. You want to go for the companies first and then find if they have open jobs. Focus on the relationships you can build with the people who are in the places that you're interested in, and see if you can build those relationships, in particular through informational interviews. Because LinkedIn or other technologies or ways to connect with people, it's just kind of the start, but we need to be taking the connections and the relationships off of the platform and into conversations, because that's where relationships and true networking happens. Sometimes we overcomplicate networking, but in the end, networking is simply just building relationships with people. Right? That's all it is. So, and I hear all the time people say, if I could just talk to someone, then they'd know that I could be good for these roles or whatever. Well, then my advice is stop putting in all those applications, spending time doing that, and spend more time trying to ask more people to talk to you. If you feel like you need someone to talk to you, then ask for that, okay? And LinkedIn is a place where you can get the introduction, get the spark, the initial contact, but it doesn't need to be where you host the conversation. That should be offline. If you can do it in person, great. Zoom, phone call, whatever you can do. Okay. So you just kind of start by asking, like, who do you know and who do you want to know? And then it can be really as simple as sending them a connection request, telling them why you are interested in talking with them, and seeing where that conversation leads. Then you can ask for that. We don't have time to go into it tonight. I go into a lot more detail how to do this effectively in some of my coaching programs, like how to effectively find those people, some of the specific messaging strategies that can often work, how to structure them, how to more effectively set up these interviews. But I just want to make sure you know the basic idea of how to do this, because the basic idea here is that LinkedIn is a fabulous way to network, because the response rate is way higher on LinkedIn to reach out to people than like just sending a cold email, because people are on the platform to connect. That's like one of the whole reasons they do that. And you can figure out and find who you need to be talking to, what you're looking for, almost guaranteed. Okay. So that kind of wraps up the main section of what we're going to talk about. We've talked about establishing more connections. We've talked about profile optimization. We've talked about networking ideas and why that's important, how to get off the platform, really establish those relationships. And LinkedIn is just a start there. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. But at this point, I kind of want to ask you a question. Like, maybe you're thinking and feeling excited or hopeful about utilizing some of these strategies, but you're kind of feeling overwhelmed and unsure, like, okay, how do I do this? Because we only had limited time. And so I'd love to help. Some of you I already know and work with personally, but for others of you, that's not true. I've set aside some more time in the next few weeks to have some calls, and these calls are free, and it's not for everyone, but I want you to come to these calls ready to invest in yourself and take action to really push forward in your career. And I do this because I really, truly love helping people make progress on what their goals, break through their problems or challenges, and find solutions to them, okay? And so a lot of times people see the value in working more closely with me. And I've got a whole program I call the Engineering Career Accelerator Program that goes much deeper into some of the LinkedIn strategies and other things to really make that intentional career transition. So we talk about all things from getting clarity to really building up that brand, talk about mindsets, how to land that job you love, have more career fulfillment. And it's really designed to get you hired as soon as possible in a place that you're really excited about. So if you're dealing with some of these struggles and you need some help, you kind of have a choice. And I like to go back to some physics principles. One of Newton's laws of motion is that object at rest will stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. And so if you feel in some way that you're at rest in your career, if you're out of a job or feeling stuck, or feel like you've got limited opportunities, or feel like you're being held back in some way, you can stay at rest, or we can schedule a call and we'll talk, and maybe perhaps me and the program, the other things we can do can be that outside force to really get you accelerating your career. So if you're interested, if that sounds helpful, you can go to morethan-engineering.com/schedule-call. It'll give you an opportunity to schedule a time that works for you to get clear on what you need to break through your specific challenges, and we'll figure out how to work forward and make your dreams and goals a reality, and create kind of a plan to help you get where you want to go. Okay, so so you kind of, at this point, we've watched this entire presentation. You want to use LinkedIn and go beyond LinkedIn to really accelerate your career. You want to do this. So if it's helpful, schedule the call and start making progress as soon as possible. So that's all I want to share with you tonight. Here's that link there at the top for that LinkedIn guide on profiles that I promised. That's that link in the middle. If we're not, for some reason, connected on LinkedIn, then you can connect with me there. I'm happy to connect with any of you, and open it up for questions and chat here. I will get these links shared in the chat to make it a little bit easier for you to find as well. So just threw in the chat the LinkedIn guide and my LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with me if we're not already, and then the link to schedule a call here in the chat for everyone. Okay, so what questions can I answer for any of you based on some of the things we talked about or didn't get to? I want to make sure we spend some time there. Anyone have a question or concern that they're working on? I see a lot of thinking faces. Did I answer every single question we talked about at the very beginning, or can we personalize things just to you? Because by the virtue of this, I have to stay a little bit broad, but I'm happy to talk just to you.
Jeff, one of the things I find with, like LinkedIn and networking is, in general, I'm pretty shy, and, making those connections with someone you don't know.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for people that are me or like me?
Yeah, I mean, engineers often get put into the introvert, whatever, and whether or not you are an introvert or shy or whatever, that's fine. But it really comes, but I love the quote that says, almost everything you want in life is just outside of your comfort zone. Okay, so am I telling you that you need to somehow turn into an extrovert if you're an introvert? No, I'm not saying you should change that at all. What I am saying is that doing things that feel uncomfortable or hard are good things to do in many cases. And trying things that are, it's going to push us to learn. It's going to push us to grow. It's going to push us to consider what our limits really are. And, focus on the opportunity. Okay. Because they may or may not, if you try and reach out to someone, they may or may not say yes. They may or may not want to contact, you to talk to them. They may or may not even accept your connection request. And in fact, still probably the majority of people won't if it's not someone you know. But if you go about it the right way, you'll increase those chances. And you never know what happens. I've seen amazing things happen when people try and reach out. I've met dozens of amazing people that the connection started through LinkedIn. People I've collaborated with, people I've worked with, and people who have been mentors to me. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't, at least try. And there's been hundreds or thousands of people that I reached out to that have said no, but that's okay too. It only takes a few influential people to make some of the biggest differences in our lives and our careers. And so see if you can find them. Is that helpful? Yeah, cool. Good question.
Jeff, I don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to say I appreciate you putting this together for us. This was great. I got some good information to get started with the profile. I got to be heading out to work, so I'm going to be scheduling a phone call with you later.
Yeah, please do.
But I want to say I appreciate it. Everything was good. Good starting point. The cover story, I think that's a huge piece that's going to help that I wasn't even aware of. So
Yeah,
I'll get started on that immediately. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, cool, Wayne. Thanks for being here, and look forward to talking here soon.
Thank you, Jeff. I left a comment saying that knowing myself, I'm going to start and then I'm going to have a ton of questions. So I'm going to start going and then I'll schedule the call. But thank you so much. This has been, everybody's been saying, oh yeah, build up your LinkedIn, make it look like mine. And I look at it and I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing. And now just being able to talk through it, and it's like, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And James, I saw some of the little ones crawling around. It makes me smile when I see the kids joining and stuff as well.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Good stuff. And Elizabeth asked in the comments in the chat here, like, what kind of message would you send when trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn? And the classic annoying answer, Elizabeth, is it depends. But what I'm gonna talk about principles here. Okay, main principles are that you want to not send the exact same message to every single person. Okay, because every single person is different. They want to, you want to personalize that to them. So if I'm connecting with Matt, who I know personally, Matt happens to work at Lockheed Martin right now. Okay, so and I'm interested in Lockheed, and so I say, okay, Matt's working on cool stuff. I'm going to go check out Matt's LinkedIn profile because I found him as someone in my area that, or in the region, or working on something in particular that I might be interested in. I'm going to go see what I can about their LinkedIn profile. What are they working on and different things, that may tell you if it's someone that you actually do want to reach out to. And then there's going to be a few things that kind of stand out to me, most likely. And so I will use those to customize the message. I'll say, hey, Matt, found your profile and was really amazed by X, Y, and Z, the things that brought out. Or if there's any sort of connection, say, hey, I noticed we're connected with this person together. How do you know them? Or I noticed we're both alumni of this university. Sometimes that's something you can use as kind of an in. Anything that you can use to personalize and share some form of connection, common interest, or other things, then do that. And the first connection message, generic. You're not asking for anything. You're just saying, hey, can I connect? Then if they say yes, they engage, and you can start that chat. Then you might say, hey, thanks so much for connecting. I'm interested in learning more about X, Y, and Z, or making a career transition or something, or learning more about this industry. Would you have 15 or 20 minutes to chat where I can ask you a few questions about some of the things you've done or some of the things you're working on. You're asking for that initial conversation, that informational interview. It could be as simple as that. The first connection message often is like really simple, just trying to say, look, I actually took some time to look at you and who you are as a person, not just sending the connection request to every person exact same. Is that helpful, Elizabeth? Can't see your face because you're not actually sharing your camera, but hopefully that's helpful. All right. Any other questions or topics that anyone here wants to talk about before we leave tonight? Okay. Well, I want to thank you for being here. I hope this time was helpful for you. If you have more questions, reach out to me. Certainly, if you want to talk about going deeper in some of these things, schedule a call with me. I'd love to chat and help you in any way that I can. And we can talk about what it would look like to work together more closely. And we have a couple people here who are already working with me, doing some one-on-one work together. Can probably say, yeah, Jeff's, okay to work with, or maybe he's not. I'll let them say that. But I really appreciate you being here, and wish you the best. And connect with me and ask me any other questions in the future. I'm happy to help in other ways that I can. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep. Have a good night.
Bye, Jeff.
Bye, Shashank.